and welcome to another episode of the Tar Heel Insider Podcast right here on SI. I'm your host, Grant Sashere, the lead beat writer for North Carolina Tar Heels on SI, bringing you all the latest news in regards to the University of North Carolina and its athletic programs. On last Saturday, Bill Belichick took the podium before the very first practice of fall camp. And he said a lot of very interesting things, a whole lot of interesting things. And, he's always very well detailed. And, he tells it like it is, which I do appreciate. And I actually wrote a bunch of articles from the press conference. And one was about, how they recruit and how they evaluate, which we'll talk about in a second. And then also, how he handles the transfer portal, right? And I think those two things were, extremely beneficial to kind of give an idea of like how he evaluates, like what he wants to bring to the team, the whole 9 yards. And I wrote two articles about them. They're already up. And make sure you go check them out. Just look at my name, Grant Sashery, Tar Heels on the side. Click my profile. It should be you should be able to see it. It was posted today. I know I've posted a lot of articles in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it's already up. But a lot of interesting stuff, and he was honest. Like some of the things he said, like he straight to say, "Yeah, I release players." Like, and he treats, treats this game like he does in the NFL. He treats the way he handles the recruiting and transfer portal like he handled it when he was with the Patriots. Because technically, even though he wasn't the GM of the Patriots and in terms of title, he was the de facto GM. He, often would sign players that you would often overlook, and then also he would cut players like he would cut like players who were like Pro Bowlers the year before, and you just cut them because it's it could be a risk because that could be just a one-off, and a lot of times that's exactly what happened. Or and so then it has backfired too, right? But most of the time he cut guys off because he knew they reached their full potential, and he's like, all right, on the next guy, and that's how he treats it. And I actually asked him a question about how he evaluates players, and because there's a difference between evaluating high school athletes compared to college athletes and professional athletes. It's a whole different ball game, and he gave a great answer right here that I'm about to share y'all from my question.
Um, you, you pretty much hit all the issues right there. The high school evaluations are harder because there's more of a discrepancy between the players that we're evaluating, power forward type players versus honestly other players who aren't even going to play college football. High school is probably the end of their football career, and then in between. So it's hard to see. Sometimes it's hard to see what the level of competition is. Of course, you can see a kid in person, which we had approximately 4,000 kids on campus in our 7-on-7 camps and in our individual camps. That's helpful, or to go see the player actually practice at his high school, or games in the fall, which we didn't do last year, but we could do some of that this year. So those things are helpful, but the best evaluation is when we actually get on the field and do our stuff against our players.
Where I grew up, I see.
Oh, damn ads. But anyway, yeah, that was part of the answer, and to kind of give the question in full, because I don't want to run it. There's a lot. There was an ad right there. But basically, this is what he said: the high school evaluations are harder because there's more of a discrepancy between the players that we're evaluating. Powerful wartime players versus honestly other players who aren't getting to play college football. Belichick said. High school is probably the end of the football career, so sometimes it's hard to see what the level of competition is. Of course, you can see a kid in person, which is why we had approximately 4,000 kids on campus in our 7-on-7 camps, in our individual camps. That's what he said. That I'm actually repeating what he already said. But this is what he said about the college. So the college out evaluation, I'd say, is a little bit more easier, similar to the NFL free agency, where you can see guys playing at a competition level that's more similar to ours. In some cases, there are guys that are going to play up, but in other cases, not. We have a couple guys from Penn State and Florida, places like that. So that's a pretty good competition right there. But we have some other players that have transferred in from, let's just say, lower levels. So that's a little bit more challenging. That came from Belichick himself. Now, of course, Belichick evaluates more than just talent, considering, he considers how a player fits culturally and then also the character traits that he may bring into the program. And this is what he said about, this is what he's kind of elaborating more about that. We're watching the same high school film that every other school is watching. And we're watching the same college transfer film that everybody else is watching, Belichick said. This is from an article. Really, it's up to us to make the right evaluation for us, how the player fits, not how he fits for another team. And their system could be two different things. We have to do what we feel is best for the development of our team. And that's not just his on-the-field play, but also the other components he brings, his work ethic, leadership, toughness, and so forth. So it's challenging. That all came from Belichick. And you're really starting to see kind of the guys he wants to bring in his team. Now, you got to have a way of understanding, right? If you understand the Patriot way, right? Being accountable, doing your job, the whole 9 yards. So you're starting to see the Patriot way come into Chapel Hill. And I think that's a really interesting thing too. And that's not the only thing he mentioned too. He also talked a good bit about how he handles the locker not the locker room, but the team, the roster, and everything like that. I actually wrote about that on the website. And those two articles, I'm actually going to bring up the names of the articles for you guys who may be trying to figure out what they are. One of the articles is, Bill Belichick brings NFL roster building tactics to North Carolina. And then the other one is Belichick explains the art of recruiting at UNC. So make sure to go check that out. But the other part I want to talk about is how he's using NFL roster building tactics to North Carolina. I think that was very interesting as well. Bill Belichick is balancing college scholarships and walk-ons. He's been trimming the roster months before the season to meet the NCAA's 105-player limit. Thanks to the NCAA's grandfather clause, he's had several former walk-ons still count toward the roster, but not the scholarship cap, which gives him and his staff more flexibility to shape the team. And he kind of elaborated on that. Obviously, most of them will be on scholarship, but there are some guys that are kind of in that gray area. Maybe they can earn a scholarship depending on what their role is and so forth. So from a numbers standpoint, we're in good shape. Like, we're not going to have to release players to get to the 105. We already kind of did that in the spring, which was a difficult decision to make. So we just straight up acknowledge that they just released players, which is I wouldn't say it's wild because this is nothing new in this modern day football, right? Deion Sanders did that, right, at Colorado. I know for a fact that what's his name, G.J. Kinney, who was the head coach of Texas State, he released a lot of different guys off the team. As a matter of fact, I used to cover LSU, and one of the things that LSU did was they just straight up released some players. You kind of had the idea that, okay, this guy wasn't leaving on his own volition. He was probably told, hey, you have to leave. You're not going to play here. And that's something that Belichick did. He did that with some members of the team. I mean, of course, maybe the exceptions are like guys for like Amari Campbell, who are some of the best edge rushers in the country, so they could leave wherever they wanted to, especially after Mac Brown got fired. Those guys are the exceptions. A lot of those guys left because Bill Belichick said, nah, dog, you I think you're a good guy, but I don't think you're going to play here. You're not a part of our plan. And that's very similar to how a lot of NFL head coaches and GMs handle that sort of situation professionally. So there's that. But somebody asked him about how he handles the bottom of the roster, right? The guys who are the most likely to be at risk to be told, hey, you're not a part of our plan, or you're probably not going to play much here, so I would suggest you transfer. And Bill Belichick, by the way, loves those questions. By the way, when he got asked that question, he was smiling from ear to ear, and he said, "I love those bottom of the roster questions. A lot of people let that stuff go, but honestly, those are important decisions. Some of those players eventually are going to end up helping us. To me, those players are just as important as the top 10. They're going to have roles. We're constantly trying to make sure we, from top to bottom, do the best we can." And he also said this: we've had plenty of free agents and low-round draft picks who not only competed and earned playing time, but became some of our best players. If a player wants to come and compete and has shown enough skill, we'll take him. And we've done that many times. But entitlement isn't one of them. If someone walks in thinking they're guaranteed a starting spot or anything else, that's not how it works here. They're going to have to earn it. If they want playing time, a roster spot, and the chance to play at Carolina in the ACC, will give them that opportunity. But they'll have to prove themselves. Nothing will be handed out. Just like nobody gives away wins in this conference. And that's, to a T, how he handled things in New England. He wants North Carolina to be the 33rd team in the NFL. Obviously they're not going to join the NFL, but that's how he wants to handle business. He wants North Carolina to be handled like an NFL team, because really that's in the state of college athletics today. That's where we are. I mean, college athletics is basically professional sports. And look, I've said this since the beginning of time. College athletics has always been professional sports, right? It's just that everything was done at the table. Now it's just out. So now you have to do things differently. You have to handle it like a business. College sports has always been a business for years. The NCAA has made billions of dollars, and now you're starting to see that really in the open of a professional franchise, and that's what college sports has turned into. Now, hopefully, maybe they don't get obviously you don't have owners or anything like that, but it's still a business at the end of the day, and most of the moves you see North Carolina make have been about trying to make more money for the athletic program, so they don't have to cut other athletic programs, some of the non-revenue athletic programs like soccer or gymnastics and whatnot. Right, that's why you're seeing Steve Newkirk being hired as a new AD, replacing Bubba Cunningham at the end of his tenure. Bubba Cunningham is stepping down so he can come in. And why do you think they hired Bill Belichick? They hired him because he knows how to handle these type of situations. And UNC, if the reports are true, which more than likely they are, that UNC will be moving to the SEC in probably as early as 2030. So right now you're starting to see everything kind of culminate into what an NFL franchise is. They're a business. They're trying to make the best decisions for the business. And that's what a college football program is. It is a business. It is a billion-dollar industry. There's only two sports that are billion-dollar industries in college athletics. That's football and that's basketball. And you have to start treating it like a business. And Bill Belichick is the CEO of football. That's exactly what he is. And you're starting to see some of the things he did in New England come to full effect in Chapel Hill. But anyway, that's going to wrap up today's episode. My name is Grant Sashra. I am the lead beat writer for the North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. Make sure to go check out our website. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Tar Heels on SI. And also follow me, Grant Sashra, on Twitter, which is my last name, first name, and that's how you follow me on Twitter. And I'm producing a lot of content each and every day. And I'll also make sure to like our Facebook page as well. But in the meantime, you guys have a great one. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I'll bring you all the best coverage for your North Carolina Tar Heels. I'll see y'all later.